Hello, friends.
How are
Today,
you?
again, we are coming on live. Today, the special guest is from Zimbabwe. He is a General Secretary of Zimbabwe Communist Party. Today, we have discussions regarding uh, working class movement in Zimbabwe and what about the COVID situation in Zimbabwe. So, welcome, sir, to our News Frontliner web desk. Uh, what is the situations in Zimbabwe in COVID situation, especially COVID situation, if you tell in briefly.
Thank you so much for having me in the show. The situation in Zimbabwe is bad. When the national lockdown was declared, the first challenge that we experienced was that we didn't have meal in the shops, which you know is the staple food in Zimbabwe. So people did not observe social distancing as people were rushing to the shops to try and get meal. Secondly, the government did not have capacity to test people with COVID-19. So we do not know in terms of how many people are positive and how many are not, because the government does not have capacity to test. So these are the challenges. Under COVID-19, you have food shortages. You have a government that has no capacity to test and so forth. So these are the challenges that we have. And the last one is the issue of corruption. When COVID-19 donations were made, those close to the president, the ruling party, had to steal, so to speak, the COVID-19 donation. So we saw the journalist who was exposing this corruption being arrested by the state for simply telling the truth, to say money is donated and equipment donated for COVID-19 is being stolen.
So when the pandemic has been started in Zimbabwe,
Like we are saying that we do not have the figures, but we were people that are dying as a result of COVID-19, but the government does not have a strategy of fighting COVID-19.
now when in India, at the end of the January, the COVID attack has been happened in India. And when in Zimbabwe,
In
such
Zimbabwe,
attacks happen.
started mid to end of March. You'll know that from May, June, it's our winter, so there was a high peak in the during that period. So from end of March to throughout the winter period, yeah.
So during COVID situations and during lockdown, many losing their jobs, especially from working class. So what about in Zimbabwe context? What about the situation about the working class during the lockdown period?
Well, before the lockdown, already we had 90% of the working people in the informal sector, because you know that we had the economic collapse. 90% of the workforce is in the informal sector. The only people that are working, the 10%, the majority of the 10% of people that are working are the civil servants, your teachers, your nurses, your doctors, and so forth. The rest are in the informal sector. So when the COVID-19 struck and the national lockdown was announced or introduced, it affected mainly those that are in the informal sector, because they could not go out and do their business. So this is what made it difficult really to even monitor and even to enforce lockdown regulations, because the people depend on informal sector selling their products in the streets. So you basically do not have industries that are operational in Zimbabwe. This has been a huge challenge.
Any help from the government towards working class people, or how they will survive without jobs and without salary?
You will know that the government of Zimbabwe has always seen the working class as the enemy, as its enemy or the enemy of the state. So it has taken an uncaring attitude. It doesn't care how people survive. it draws its support from the rural areas. It does not have support in the urban areas. So as a result, it did not really put out a package to say to support those that have had who have been affected by the COVID-19, those that are in the informal sector, those that are working. It is struggling to pay civil servants, so it did not really put out a package like other countries. For instance, in South Africa, where people were being supported. In Zimbabwe, that was not the case.
Yeah, right. Before the lockdown, Zimbabwe has been faced political crisis during the elections and before the elections and after the elections. The Democratic Movement for Changes, that party, will accuse the government that these elections are has been rigged by the government. And what is your view? What is your party will doing against such allegations? And what your movement for a restoration of democracy?
Well, you'll recall that on the 11th of November 2017, just 4 days or so before the coup, we did say that the upcoming elections, which were going to come in 2018, were not going to be democratic on the basis that the electoral reforms were not being implemented, and we knew and we said that its outcome was going to be contested. We were correct because we held an election then in 2018 without electoral reforms being implemented, even though the election reforms are outlined clearly in the Constitution of Zimbabwe, but they were not being implemented. So when we then went to an election, it was inevitable that the outcome was going to be disputed, as was the case. So unless there's implementation of electoral reforms, any election outcome is going to remain contested. So what is needed is to ensure that the electoral reforms are being implemented. The SADC Observer team did make recommendations, particularly with regards to the public broadcaster, how it broadcasts, because it excludes the opposition and the other players. So if those are not addressed, it's going to be difficult to have a credible election in Zimbabwe. But of course, one would certainly argue and say evidence, even though evidence was not submitted to the courts, it is becoming clearer that indeed an election was rigged in 2018.
So, any alliance with Democratic Movement for Changes with Communist Party, or you are fighting with alone?
No, we are not in alliance with anyone at the moment. And secondly, we have not resolved to contest an election. You know that we did not contest an election in 2018. In our first Congress in 2019, in December, we said we are going to have an extraordinary Congress in 2022 to decide on what would be our attitude to the 2023 elections. So that's when we're going to decide to say, how are we going to approach the elections? Because as we vanguard the working class and the peasants, the challenge that we have is that the working class support the MDC, Movement for Democratic Change, and the peasants that we also vanguard support ZANU-PF. So you've got these two classes, so to speak, supporting different political mass movements. So this is the difficulty that we find ourselves in. So we'll be doing a scientific analysis in August 2022 when we hold our extraordinary Congress to decide on what would be our attitude to 2023 elections.
So, without contesting in elections, how it is to be possible? So, you are coming into the power, or you are getting the power to work for the working class. So, how it is be possible? That is the main questions.
We differ probably with other communist parties. We know that, like in India, the Communist Party, Marxist, to contest the elections. But you also know that some communist parties, like the South African Communist Party, contest election in alliance with the African National Congress. So our conditions are a bit different. We are not in alliance with anyone. We have not built a large party that has capacity to contest an election. So these are the issues that in 2022 we'll be discussing. And again, if we want to contest an election, we cannot contest an election on our own as the Zimbabwe Communist Party. It has to be a decision of the working class and the peasants in Zimbabwe. At the moment, there's consultation with the working class in Zimbabwe through their trade unions. We are not at the moment consulting them on whether we should contest an election, but what we are doing currently is to find common ground in terms of working together. For instance, we are talking of a crisis that is in Zimbabwe. How is it affecting the working class? What should be the resolution of that crisis? So these are the issues that we are currently working on with the trade union movement in Zimbabwe. The second thing you will know that the Zimbabwean state has declared the working class as its enemy, and how then doing ensure that particularly the leadership of the trade union movement is not at risk. We saw the leadership of the trade union movement being harassed by the Zimbabwean state. So all these issues were working together. And the last point that we are working together, we are talking of a global Zimbabwe solidarity campaign that we are carrying out together with the trade unions in Zimbabwe, which we have declared 23rd September as the Global Day of Solidarity, to highlight the suffering and the challenges that the working class and peasants are going through in Zimbabwe.
Now, my question is that how your movement will get popularized by the working class? What will be the campaign?
Well, for now, as we are saying, is that we are establishing links with the trade union movement. It's not yet grounded, but we are establishing links with the trade union movement in Zimbabwe. We are carrying out, in some instances, together some campaigns with the trade union movement. We have not been able at the moment to establish links with the rural-based organizations in Zimbabwe. But with the trade union movement, we are beginning to establish links and beginning to work together. But as we are saying, is that the challenge, of course, is that the opposition, the movement for democratic change, was established by the trade union movement in 1999. So it is not going to be easier to simply expect that the trade union movement will simply pull out from the movement.
What will be the minimum wages and what is your demand for the upliftment for the wage negotiations or any other? What is your demand in the working class movement right now?
Well, the working class in Zimbabwe is demanding that it should be paid in US dollars. The last agreement that they had with the employer, which happens to be government, is that they should be paid in US dollars.
Is there any Factories Act or any other labor worker welfare act is enacted there, or without any welfare, the employer recruited the working class?
I didn't get your question.
Any welfare act is in Zimbabwe, or it is like a contractual basis or slavery attitude from the employer sections?
Well, there's a slavery attitude because as I was saying is that the last agreement was that workers will be paid in US dollars, but we are now using what we call RTGs or bond notes. When the RTGs were introduced, it was said it was 1:1 with the US dollar. People are not being paid equivalent to the US dollar. The inflation is close to 1,000%. So this is the challenge that we have. So you have seen workers in the public sector going on strike, demanding to be paid in US dollars. So we support the campaign that workers must be paid in US dollars.
So what kind of employment sectors are there in Zimbabwe?
Well, like I said, that the 10% that are formally employed, because we have said 90% are in the informal sector. The 10% is mainly civil servants, and then I'm not sure in terms of percentage those that are in mining and agriculture, but the rest, the majority of the employed people that are working are your civil servants in the military.
Is there any right of the working class? They have to do a trade union or any other associations? They have rights in Zimbabwe.
They have rights to belong to a trade union movement. This is why we do have trade unions in Zimbabwe. But as we have said, is that every time when workers go on strike demanding better working conditions and better wages, they are declared enemies of the state because the government sees the workers as part of a regime change agenda, which is not true because they are saying we agreed that will be paid in US dollars and the government is no longer meeting is part of the bargain. So this is the challenge that we have.
Actually, I want to back to the history in Zimbabwe. Once upon a time, Mr. Mugabe, Mr. Mugabe is the leading in the front uh, against the injustice on the black people in Zimbabwe. So what is the why ZANU PF is turned into a autocratic leaderships in Zimbabwe? What is the reason behind it? Because ZANU PF once upon a time claimed he's a leftist political party. Right now, they are most autocratic, as you accusing that government. Why? Why such changes in Zimbabwe?
I don't know what tools of analysis you are using in terms
No,
of
he's
defining.
working for the black people, and he's what I'm saying. He's organized the movement in 1970s. I think so.
Look, of course, Mugabe, people have different interpretations and different understanding on who Robert Mugabe was, and in our view, Robert Mugabe is not what you seem to be describing him. Here is a man that soon after becoming prime minister of an independent Zimbabwe went on to commit a genocide. Over 20,000 black people were murdered in cold blood using a secret military called the 50th Brigade Kukurawundi. So any revolutionary who loves black people cannot go out and commit such crimes against the humanity. Secondly, it is Mugabe that he has always declared the working class as the enemy. You even recall before even the formation of the MDC, when the leadership of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions was complaining about poor working conditions, demanding better working conditions from government, he then said they must form a political party because to him he saw them as a political threat. That's not the Mugabe that we know, the Mugabe that you are describing. Yes, of course, when Mugabe was in power, he hijacked a genuine land reform, which most people outside the borders of Zimbabwe believe that indeed Mugabe was the man for the people. He wanted to give land to ordinary Zimbabweans. And when they see the reversal by Emerson Mnangagwa, they then say Mugabe was far much better as compared to the current president, Emerson Mnangagwa. But to us, why in Zimbabwe we do not see any difference between Mugabe and Emerson Mnangagwa?
Okay, so what is the relations between other African nations, especially in working class movement? Has you built any platform with the Pan-African regions, or it all are scattered?
When we are working closely with other communist parties in the continent, the trade union movement in Zimbabwe also works closely with the other trade unions in the continent and beyond. So there's solidarity cutting across the continent in terms of in support of the Zimbabwean working class. Yeah.
Um, uh, in November or December, there is a people uprising in Zimbabwe across the Zimbabwean regions. The lawyer, advocate, doctors, teachers are on the street. So, what is your activity on that time? What is your party activities on that time?
You are saying in December, I'm not getting clear your question.
So people protest across the Zimbabwe on November or December. I think I don't remember the exact month. that
in January.
peoples
Yeah.
are protesting against government policies. So on that time, what will be the activity of Communist Party activists?
We always in support of the structures of the working class in Zimbabwe. We support any struggling.
Any direct movement? Your party workers are on the street, or any other direct movement you have?
We work with the trade, as I said, we work with the trade union movement. So any demonstration or any strike of the workers, we do support. And we understand clearly the demands of the working class in Zimbabwe. This is why we support the strikes for the working class in Zimbabwe.
So what about the white people's reactions on ZANU-PF? Because white peoples are more uh, getting injustice from the government view, as they are claiming the government will take out their lands and businesses. What's their reactions?
Well, the white community in Zimbabwe, for the first time after 2 decades, they are actually happy with the leadership of President Emerson Mnangagwa, because he is now giving them back the land that they stole from us. You saw in the last few days where the Zimbabwean government entered into an agreement to say the white commercial farmers that used to own our land that they stole, they will be given that land back. They will be compensated to close to 3.5 or 3.8 billion US dollars. Those that would also want to get back to the land, they will have access to the land. So they are actually excited by the leadership of Emerson Mnangagwa. They've been struggling for the last 2 decades to have our land, which they stole, to have it back. So they are excited. They now love ZANU-PF. They love President Emerson Mnangagwa.
One questions from the viewer side. The Shovik Mitra, he told inquire, the racism is still in Zimbabwe. Is it true or false?
Like we were saying, racism was problematic during the land reform program. Now that land is getting back again to the hands of the white people, racism is no longer becoming an issue.
Okay, so what about the health infrastructure facilities in Zimbabwe, and what do you demand to revive the health infrastructure?
Well, the health infrastructure has collapsed over decades in Zimbabwe. You will know that the political elite gets treated overseas in foreign countries. What we are calling for as the Zimbabwe Communist Party is that we must rebuild our health infrastructure so that all of us we get treated in Zimbabwe. And the COVID-19 has taught us that each country is on its own, because we saw when international borders were closed that people couldn't really go out to receive medical attention. You need to receive it in your own country. So we must rebuild our health infrastructure.
What about your organization base? Is it increasing your membership strength, or it will static?
No, we are growing slowly, but we are growing. You know that we are a vanguard. We are not building a mass movement. We are building a vanguard of the working class and peasants. So the issue of numbers at the moment, it does not arise. What we need is to develop cadres that are schooled in Marxist-Leninist philosophy. So that we are able to play our vanguard role within the working class and the peasants in Zimbabwe.
Okay, the thing is that the history in African regions, the left movement are much strengthened. But after the Soviet Union collapsed, many Pan-African region has been the collapse the working class movement. So what is the reason behind it? Only for Soviet Union collapsed, or organizational strength has been weakened? What is your view in Pan-African region?
You will know that during the Soviet Union era, what we had in this part of the world, your liberation movement that is sang and shouted socialist songs and slogans simply because they needed to get a military support to fight against colonialism, but that did not make them a leftist, so to speak. This is why upon liberation, they became the comprador bourgeoisie. This is why it's necessary.
Even we can see in Ethiopia, Burkina Faso, the many countries has a leftist leader. One leader I know, the Colonel Shankara, he is a leftist leader, and other leaders also there. But after 1991, the whole thing has been collapsed only because of foreign power interventions or internally organization has been weakened path. What is the reason? I think something has been done within the party line.
Well, like we are saying is that while yes, you might count one or two leftist leaders in the African continent, but the rest they've never been socialist, so to speak. This is why, in our view, it is critical that we build communist parties across the African continent so that we strengthen the struggle of the working class and peasants and work towards building an alternative to capitalism, which is socialism. So in our view, unless we build communist parties, will not be able to transit from this capitalist society to a socialist society.
Yeah, right. But only in South Africa, we'll see the left movement has been strengthened, apart from other countries. But what about the Sudan history? But we can see in historical perspective in Sudan, the communist movement has been strengthened for a long time. But what is the situations right now? Sudan has been collapsing everything. What is the reason behind it?
Well, Sudan Communist Party is strengthening. It has played a crucial role, a revolutionary
But in
role.
70s, they are in the power, I think so.
Yes. I mean, every struggle, there are always setbacks. They went through some setbacks, and what is important in our view is that they are reorganizing and they are playing a critical role in rebuilding the nation in Sudan. Yes, we are correct that in South Africa, because of the presence of the Communist Party, the African National Congress is still biased to the working class, or is biased to the left. We know, though, that the ANC is a contested terrain ideologically, but because of a strong Communist Party and the workers' movement as led by COSATU, the ANC remains very much biased towards the working class.
But that's why the South African Communist Party is strengthened in Pan-African regions.
Certainly.
But I just want inquiring about the historical perspective. The France colonizations in many African regions. What is the reason behind it? Only for gold mines or any other things happen in other African nations?
I didn't get your question.
Yeah, French colonizations in other African countries. Why and what is the reason behind it for the French colonizations in Africa? Historical perspective, I want to inquire.
Well, you know that Kwame Nkrumah spoke of neo-colonialism when we attained independence. We only got what you might call political independence, but the economy remained in the hands of the former colonizers. You will know that in some parts of West Africa, some countries still pay colonial tax to France. France still decides on who should lead a country, particularly in the West Africa. So these are the challenges, because
only for gold mining or other resources that they have.
They are after our resources because Africa is rich in minerals. This is why you see the unending crisis in Democratic Republic of Congo, for example. Because these colonizers, they still want our resources. Like I'm saying, we gained our political independence, but the economy remains largely in the hands of our former colonizers, and they still exploit our minerals.
It is very unfortunate that sometimes Africa has a huge minerals, huge gold mines, but right now all are exhausted. People are dying in hunger. Even you can see in Ethiopia, Eritrea. Uh, how is the Ethiopia and Eritrea there? Because we can find out the pictures. The peoples are dying in hunger. What is the situations right now? Still exist?
Yeah. There are still challenges, economic challenges in Ethiopia, Eritrea. There are serious economic challenges. Yes, you now have in Ethiopia a prime minister who's committed in the rebuilding of the Ethiopian economy. But of course, there are challenges, and we think that it must be supported in rebuilding the economy in Ethiopia. Like in the rest of the continent, there are huge economic challenges, and our people in the continent are not benefiting from our own minerals that are in Africa.
So we are ending in this ending the sessions very soon. The last questions I have: what is the education policy in Zimbabwe? How many people are literate, and what is the infrastructure? Education infrastructure has been developed in Zimbabwe. What is your demand regarding this?
Well, in the first decade of our independence, Zimbabwe was the best in terms of education, literacy in the continent, which was one of the best. From 1980, the government embarked on an education drive to ensure that every child must go to school. In the last 20 years or so, there have been a reversal in that with the collapse of the economy, where people are losing jobs, they are unable to take their kids to school, and government is not assisting. Not new infrastructure, educational infrastructure being built has been a huge challenge. So what we need is to ensure that there is a proper educational infrastructure that is built in terms of the physical infrastructure of your schools, because you still have kids, particularly in rural areas, who are traveling long distances to go to school. And once you travel long distance to go to school, you do not concentrate. So one, there must be proper infrastructure built. Secondly, there must be the workers, the teachers must be well paid, so that they focus on the work that they do. Because what we have is that someone who is a teacher, he does basically two jobs. One, he becomes an informal trader during the day. Instead of them being in class, they will be going across South Africa or Botswana to buy products for resale, and leaving kids on their own in class because they are not being paid. So these are the challenges. So there's need really to begin to say, how do we remunerate our own teachers so that they focus on the work that they should do, which is teaching.
Right, you have pointed out the right things. But last questions I have. So what is the medium of instructions in Zimbabwe? Once upon a time, the French language has been official language, many African regions. What about in Zimbabwe? How the people will learn through their mother tongue or international language?
We were colonized by the British, so we still use English as our medium of instruction in our schools and other public places. But of course, you do have two main African languages, is Shona and is Ndebele. And then now in the 2013 constitution, we did include other African languages. So in all, you have 16, but English becomes the dominant language in Zimbabwe.
Right. And what about the online class facilities? Because during COVID-19, how the student will learn about the curriculum activities or education's activity?
This has been a huge challenge during COVID-19 because we have low internet penetration in Zimbabwe. So we had very few students that will access online learning. This has been a huge challenge in terms of ensuring that kids continue with their learning under COVID-19. This is why it's important that part of the campaign that we're carrying out as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, excuse me, is that we must ensure that at least every child or every school had access to internet, so that under these circumstances, kids will be able to do their research, they are able to learn. Because without internet in these days, it becomes difficult. So COVID-19 has taught us that it is an urgent task that we must embark on. That one, we must roll out rural electrification and also roll out internet penetration in rural communities.
So we need to know about sports activity because in India, Zimbabwe, known as Andy Flower, Grand Flower, the Flower brothers are doing a great cricket match. We can find it out. Olonga, their names are there in India. So how is the sports activities there? Only for rich peoples are exercise their sports activity, or the poor peoples also present, also involved in such sports?
Well, like the economy, everything under ZANU PF unfortunately has collapsed. Our own sport in courts have collapsed. For instance, because the most popular sport in Zimbabwe is football. The the international is it the CAF Confederation of African Football has rolled out our major stadiums that they are not fit to host the international matches in Bulawayo and in Harare. So these are the challenges because we have not been renovating them over the years. And the teams that are there were not really remunerating correctly sports personnel. You do not really like in other countries, like in South Africa, where when you don't get that respect, if say you are a footballer, even cricket has gone down. Is no longer like what it was the times that you have mentioned. So it's important that you will revive all these, so that we occupy our space in the international community.
Yeah, really vast discussions within 37 minutes already we're taking. But still, many questions are left. I want to ask one question that will cover our last questions for our discussions. What about the women equality and women exploitations level and violence against women? What is the real situations in Zimbabwe? What is the real picture from the Zimbabwe?
Well, it's sad because human women's violations have not gone down in Zimbabwe. It's the roots in our traditional society where we, from a traditional point of view, women are not seen playing a critical role in the state or in society. They are simple seen as objects. So, this is the challenge that we are having. Part of the work that we are doing, and which is other civil society organizations are doing, is to raise awareness to say women also have a right to occupy leadership positions, be it in political parties, in society, and so forth, in the corporate world. And to also teach young men in particular that even if you were to go and pay a bride price, that does not mean the woman that you have paid bride price for it's someone that you need to control. So these are the challenges that we have. So we continue with the campaign around the rights of women in society.
Thank you, Nicholas. We again will come back after uh, some time. We'll make discussions on economic level in Zimbabwe. Already we gone 40 minutes. You are very much busy, we know. So take care. Any last message to the Indian people do you have? Please tell.
The last message that we're having is that we have declared together with the trade union movement the 23rd September as the Day of Solidarity, or Global Zimbabwe Solidarity Day. So we expect that trade unionists around the globe, communist parties around the globe, will be in solidarity with the people of Zimbabwe, mainly the working people of Zimbabwe. We are saying that if people were to gather, observing the lockdown conditions, say at the Zimbabwean missions, less than 50 people, to raise the demands that we have. The demands being that there must be respect to the rights of the workers in Zimbabwe. We must end corruption. Government of Zimbabwe must end the corruption. We must pay the Zimbabwean workers in US dollars. We must ensure that we are opposed to the $3.5 billion which is being paid to the former white commercial farmers. So these are some of the demands that we have, that we are calling on all progressive forces to support across the globe, so that we give solidarity to the working class in Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicholas. Take care. Have a nice day.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.